Weird Realities explores the paranormal, preternatural, and supernatural worlds that surround us. Here we delve into those topics that challenge us to think outside the limitations of realism, where we test the boundaries of imagination and are forced to think outside the confines and restrictions of what is normal. We are the creators, the writers, the artists, and the insane. Welcome to our Weird Realities.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Scott Baker.
I'm Jennifer.
My co-host Jen is here with us. And tonight we got a really special guest, Mike Lombardo.
Hello, everybody.
Mike is a writer. He's got several short stories. He recently put into an anthology that I love the title, Please Don't Tap on the Glass and Other Tales of the Melancholy and Grotesque. He's also a screenwriter, director, and producer who has 2017 came out with the really dark apocalyptic movie. The title does sound like it's a comedy, but trust me, it isn't. I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. So, Mike, glad to have you with us tonight.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, Mike, what did you start to do first? Did you do the short stories or did you jump into the screenwriting?
So I've always been a huge reader as a kid and a horror movie fan. So the two kind of evolved simultaneously, but I was writing short stories since I was a very young child. And then when I got into like middle school, high school is when I started to really delve into filmmaking because of movies like Evil Dead and Peter Jackson, stuff like Bad Taste. I grew up with trauma, so I started learning about all that, and that's when I started writing short scripts and producing short films.
So, were you a big fan of like the Universal horror movies and
Creature from the Black Lagoon will always have my heart.
See, I love those. We used to have them run all the night. I love them. The Universal horror movies, the big bug movies of the 50s.
Oh yeah.
So, have you written a novel yet?
I have not.
Not yet.
No,
but
just
still,
you
got the anthology. That's
yeah. I've been. A lot of people are telling me I should be writing a novel or at least a novella. It's somewhere in my head. I'm sure it'll come out soon enough.
Now, screenwriting, as I mentioned, you did that. You did that movie. I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. What other productions have you done?
So I've made over a dozen short films, and then I've co-written a lot of stuff with people that either hasn't come out or is still in progress. But White Doomsday was my first feature-length film, and that was adapted from a short story that's in the book called I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday that I adapted into the feature. And then I'm planning on doing, I'm putting out another short story collection, essentially, is what I'm hoping to do next. And then I'm currently in the middle of writing a screenplay based on a short story in the book, also called Dead Format.
All right, great. Because one of the things we love to talk about on this show is going from traditional writing to screenwriting. What gave you the idea to take White Doomsday from the written page to the silver screen?
So when I wrote the short story, essentially, the Cliff Notes version of it is my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney failure and was in the ER or the ICU rather for quite some time. And during that time, we didn't think she was going to make it. So to deal with the stress of all of that, I was kind of the go-between with my family and the doctors, and I was trying to shield her from the reality of how terrible things really were. So all that anxiety and stress went into the short story, which is essentially, it's about a mother and her 7-year-old son starving to death in a bomb shelter after the end of the world. And I wanted to basically write a story about watching someone you care about fading away and being helpless to stop it. You can't do anything about it. And that kind of turned into the story. So I wrote the story, and it got published in a short story collection called A Very Strange House Christmas. Got really good reviews. And over the years, people would always bring it up at shows. They're like, that short story you wrote, like, gutted me. Like, you should really make a film out of that. And at the time, I was working at a pizza shop, and I'm known for doing horror comedy. And I was like, I can't do this movie. There's no way I could film this movie on the budget. Like, I work in a pizza shop. Like, there's no way in hell I could afford to do this. And 2, I was doing comedy at the time. So I'm like, I don't know that I've got the chops for this. And, time was going on. So someone's like, dude, just break it down. Like, how would you do it? So I sat down and I started breaking down the short story. And I'm like, okay, what changes would I have to make it a narrative? How could I do this? And I'm used to guerrilla filmmaking. So I make props, I do special effects. So I started breaking it down and figuring out how I would make everything. And I'm like, you know what? This actually might be possible. We just need the locations. Mm-hmm. And then I was at a film festival, and I met a gentleman who goes by the name Taruga, he was dressed as a Dawn of the Dead zombie from George Romero's film. And when I say Dawn of the Dead, I mean he was wearing blue makeup, and so it was like a zombie walk that led to this film festival. So of course I had to talk to this guy. I'm like, this dude's great. So we became friends, and I was on Facebook just, doing something, and he messages me, and he's like, I read your story. I would love to see this as a movie. And I'm like, how can I help? And I was like, well, you don't have access to a half dozen abandoned locations by chance, do you? Ha ha. He starts sending me pictures of pretty much every location we shot in the movie. It turns out he's an urban explorer and a photographer. So he had all these awesome places in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is where we shot the movie. And the bomb shelter was the only thing we couldn't find. We spent months scouring places and trying to find it. And at the last second, a friend of mine moved into a house that was, I think, 200 years old. And she's like, you got to see this basement. So we go and check it out. And it literally was like someone took the short story and just brought it to life right in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. So we decided we're going to make a short film. Mm-hmm. And as we're going, we cast it and everything. We start shooting, and we're about halfway through the production, and I start doing a rough edit of the movie, and I'm like, we've got like 50 minutes here, and I'm like, I think we accidentally made a feature. So, of course, at that point, I had run out of money. In steps Brian Keene, who I'm not sure you guys are familiar with. He's a horror author.
I know Brian.
Yeah, Brian came in. I'm good friends with him, and he helped me out quite a bit, and a couple other people I call my able magwitches. They kind of came out of the woodwork and helped fund the rest of the movie. And we made it, ended up on the film festival circuit, played it all over the world, won a bunch of awards, and got distribution, and here we are.
Yeah, I noticed. I saw you had 7 awards and 2 nominations.
It was like 14 nominations, but who's counting? I mean, come on.
That's very important.
Yeah. And the actress, Hope, I mean, I noticed she herself won 3 awards.
Yes.
For that role.
She was fantastic. She actually, when she auditioned, she was a local actress that a friend of mine turned me on to, and she came over to audition, and the scene that I had her, the last bit in her audition, I don't want to spoil anything in the movie, but there's a very intense scene where her child is in danger, and she goes into a mama bear mode. So I told her to just let loose, and she dove on my couch and actually tore a hole in the upholstery. So she was in such a frenzy, and I was like momentarily scared for my life.
Yeah.
She was very ferocious, and I was like, she like stopped and she looks up at me, and I'm like, you got the part, like, done. And then I stretched out my couch, and
Well, the story you were saying about how it was your mother, she was suffering from the stage 4 kidney failure. I could see that frustration in the movie. I mean, just her having to deal with the fact, does she want to let her son live, continue in this life, or does she want to take him out and bring him peace? Really good part. I mean, it was really the main part of the movie. I recommend anybody watch this movie. Where's it available, by the way?
So you can get it. It's actually on Blu-ray.
I saw on Tubi, and actually Roku channel also had it.
So yeah, if you want to stream, I'm a physical collector, so that's my jam. But streaming is on Tubi. I believe Screambox has it.
Yep.
I think it's available to rent on Amazon Prime. I don't think it's actually streaming on Prime. And then ScreamTeamReleasing.com has the Blu-ray. And if you like extra features, there's 2 commentary tracks and a feature-length making of documentary. Where we shot day by day how we made a film for $10,000. So if you're into filmmaking behind the scenes, I highly recommend that.
Okay. Yeah, but buy the movie. Don't just watch it. Support us. I read somewhere that the steel door was actually an old mattress box.
So yeah, the bomb shelter door itself, which actually on the behind the scenes documentary, which I gotta plug the title. It's Armageddon from the Cheap Seats. So I literally made the props in that movie were literally made out of garbage. So we didn't have any money. So I took it was foam core insulation board from Lowe's, and then we used Windows siding for the framework of it, a PlayStation 1 steering wheel controller from a racing game for the wheel, and then bottle caps for bolts. And then it was too light it was wobbly. So we had to make a framework for it, and lumber was expensive. So we broke an old box spring apart that we had sitting in our garage. And we made the framework out of it for that. And then you add the sound effects. And like one set, she's turning the wheel, it's speaking, it's styrofoam, and everyone's like laughing. We get in post-production, we put the sound effect of metal grinding in and squealing, and no one knows it is a fake door. So it's in my living room. Every time people come over to my house for the first time, they show them all the props, and they're like, "Wow!" And then I just lift it up with one hand, and like, "Holy shit!" And I'm like, "Yeah, wait, like."
Yeah, no, the sets were very realistic. I was thinking to myself, because I grew up in New England, so every house I lived in had one of those dark, dank, scary basements. But it was a great setting on it. What was the toughest part of taking your story, the short story, and turning it into a screenplay?
So the hardest part for me personally was the character. Spoiler to anyone. I mean, if you look up anything about this movie, you will see this image plastered all over it. So Santa Claus in a gas mask. So in the short story, there's the character of Santa, and the story, very early on in the story, there's a lot of internal monologue of this character. So translating it to film, he's wearing a gas mask. You can't understand people talking in a gas mask. So trying to get across the narrative with a character that can't speak was extremely difficult, especially given the budget we had, because we only had a couple days where we could shoot this character in the settings that we had. So actually what that ended up leading to is part of the end of the movie, a lot of people are very confused about what exactly happens at the end, because I couldn't find a visual way to put that piece of the narrative in there. And it's kind of metaphorical, and I won't bore you with all that stuff, but it was very hard to do that. But mostly it was trying to, because the short story, you're in the characters' heads, you can see the desperation and everything, trying to make that visual in a way that's going to keep the audience entertained, or at least watching, because it's a very, very bleak movie and it's very slow paced, because I wanted the audience to sit in real time, to sit with these characters and see the decision, because this mom's got to make this horrible choice.
Yeah.
If I rushed it, the audience wouldn't buy it, and it's so hard to make the audience not hate this woman for what she's deciding if she's going to kill her own kid. So it was a balancing act, trying to find ways to show that she cared, but then also show her struggle and the hopelessness of the situation. So all of that was very, very difficult, especially from me doing comedy for the most part. I'm not used to really opening a vein, so to speak, and being that personal. So that was really difficult for me personally, just kind of bearing my soul about all of that stuff.
That was a great movie. I know I've said this. I highly recommend it. It was you feel for that woman, Hope. I can't remember what her character's name was, but you just feel for her. And the kid was fantastic too.
Yeah, that was the hardest part about filming the movie, was dealing with a 7-year-old. We shot the movie over the course of 3 years on weekends, because again, when you don't have any money, you kind of just do it around everyone's work schedule. So the running joke during the production was the kid was going to hit fucking puberty before we finished the movie. He was losing teeth, and I wrote a scene where his mom texted me the day before a shoot, and she's like, "Reeve lost 2 teeth." And I was like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" So I wrote a scene where in the bomb shelter, because of radiation sickness, his teeth are falling out, and then he puts them under the pillow for the tooth fairy. And so I ended up cutting it. I was like, this is already dark enough. I'm not doing this. the first thing I said, I text back his mom, and I'm like, save the teeth in all caps. And she's like, why? I'm like, I don't know yet, but just save the teeth is important. I'll figure it out.
How did the kid enjoy it? Did he love doing the movie?
Yeah, so he it was hard to find a kid to begin with because, you know, I put out a casting call. A lot of people responded like, yeah, my kid, you know, I've got a child, blah, blah, blah. So I send them the short story. Instantly, half the people back out. They're like, nope, not interested anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, fair enough. Then the other half, they would show up for the audition, and you can't really audition a kid because you can't ask a child to act. You can only really get them to react and just be themselves. So it was more like an interview. I would just see what their temperament was. And Reeve kind of had it, you know, he was the right type of personality. So on set, what I would do is I would go out to like the dollar store and buy like cheapo toys and candy and stuff. And then every day we were on set, if he did good, he would get a prize at the end of the day. And then that turned into he wanted hints through the day. So if he did a bunch of takes that were good and he behaved himself, I'd give him a hint and of what the prize was going to be. So we basically just dangled a carrot in front of him all the time. But the first day he shows up on set, he asked, his mom comes up to me and says, Reeve wanted to know if there's going to be commercials during the movie so he can use the bathroom. Which I thought that was adorable. So he didn't know how it was done. By day 3, he was running our slate. And he was like, okay, I think that take was good. Let's do a safety and move on. Like he became a little producer. And so that was a real blast. But yeah, he had a lot of fun doing it. I mean, he got to do all sorts of crap that he got to get made up and stuff. And he was playing with skeletons. There's all these great behind the scenes photos of him with all of the corpses I made for the movie. Oh, yeah. And he had a ball. His middle name is Romero. His father is a huge zombie fan. So he loved it.
Ah.
Yeah, that corpse she had in the bathroom when she meets the other woman, that was just gross.
Thank you. The church behind my house also thought the same thing when I was working on it out on my back deck.
So you mentioned that it was a guerrilla production. I mean, it was low budget. Now, what are some of the tips, you know, that you recommend to anybody who wants to make their own movie like that?
So I'll give you my canned answer first. Okay. The number one advice I give to anybody that approaches me at a festival or a show and says, I want to make a movie, I tell them to get a real job. Because filmmaking, independent filmmaking, is probably the worst decision you can make in your life. It will bankrupt you. You'll lose all your friends, your families, it'll destroy your relationships. If you are still interested after I told you that, then proceed to step 2, which is beg, borrow, and steal anything you possibly can. Find my best advice.
Champions like you found with that guy who helped you find the abandoned.
Yeah.
Yes, there's so many connections out there, and there's so many people. The thing is, especially if you're not in a major city, like if you're in like LA or New York, filmmaking is not magic to those people. But small town America, like you're locally, everybody wants to be part of a movie. Everybody wants to help, and there are so many resources out there. You just have to ask. Yeah. And you know, the best thing to do is watch a lot of low budget movies. Watch Peter Jackson's early films like Bad Taste, Dead Alive. Watch Evil Dead, Sam Raimi's old stuff. Watch Trauma. But the biggest thing is watch behind the scenes footage. Listen to commentary tracks. That was my film school. When I was learning this stuff, I was shooting my first movies on an over-the-shoulder VHS camera. There literally film school is on YouTube for free now. It's crazy the technology and the amount of stuff that you can get. So if you have all these resources, you can learn how to make your own props, how to find a camera that's cheap that'll still look good. All that stuff is available. That was never accessible before. But the biggest thing is you just have to believe in yourself and not give up, because it is the most grueling, horrible thing you will ever do in your life. But when you're finished and you get to watch with an audience for the first time, it is the greatest feeling in the world. After you're done vomiting on your shoes.
Now, how do you market it?
So I had a lot of success with Facebook, Twitter. I do a lot of film festivals and conventions. I love viral marketing. Like we would do stuff like for our old films, we have a recurring character in all of our movies is a guy in a gas mask with an "End is near" sign, like a crazy homeless guy named Dr. Chud. We would dress up and just walk around and hand out flyers. I mean, you can't do that now. We get arrested because of the stuff that happens now, like with shootings and all that kind of stuff. We can't wear a mask out in public like that, but like just stuff like that, like dressing up like zombies, going to conventions, and we basically just bring a circus. I mean, that's really what it is. And I learned that from and that people, you know, if you hand someone a flyer, they're probably going to throw it away, or it's going to get lost in their bag, or it's, you know, they're going to drop it. If you're dressed up like a zombie and you give them a flyer, they're going to take a picture with you. And that's why you're wearing the t-shirt for your production company, and you have to be a shameless self-promoter. You really got to be a carnival barker, because that flyer, now it's a memento of that crazy guy they met at a show. They're like, yeah, this fucking lunatic was eating an arm, and he like did this thing, or, you know, there's something like his guts were hanging out. They remember that, and then they'll check out what you're doing. And
you did Real Splatter Productions in 2009. It says it was created, right?
What's that?
The Real Splatter Productions that was created in 2009.
Yeah, so we started doing like actual short films in 2009. My old stuff was like, we technically started in 2004, but I don't really count that. But that was when I was in high school. I don't count those projects. But yeah, I've been doing this for a long time.
And I love your about information, and it actually won me over with you. It says specialize in low budget splatter comedy and generally weird shit.
Yes.
I was like, yes, that's awesome. I'm like, he will fit right in with the weird family here. So
is everyone, all the horror fans, like the horror community especially, is such a wonderful place, and people want to see crazy shit. Like they love that. Another great tip though, for marketing, when you're at a convention or a film festival or a book event, point out t-shirts. I saw someone in the comments here said something about my Chud shirt, which is awesome. That makes me smile. I made so many friends over the years by just calling out t-shirts, because if you see someone wearing a Street Trash t-shirt or a Christmas Evil shirt, I'm like, I know this person is going to like the type of stuff that I'm doing. And then I have a conversation. That was my lovely girlfriend, Lex, just snuck in the back. But if you can find common ground with people at a show, you know, and then you can talk to them again, they'll remember you. And that's important. It's about making connections with people. You can't just treat people like marks, basically. You're not just selling stuff. You're building relationships, networking, making friends. That's what the community is. And that's how you have staying power.
Yeah. Now, you were nominated 14 times. You won 7 awards. How did that come about? Did you have to submit it? Did they come to you and say, "Hey, we love your film. We want to put it up for nomination"?
So most of those awards, it's a lot of bribery, really. You just got to throw money around, you know. No, it was when we started to do the film festival circuit with White Doomsday. Again, one of the advantages of making a movie over the course of 3 years is that you have a long time to promote. So by the time the movie was ready, a lot of festivals, we were already on their radar. So I got a lot of invitations from festivals that they were like, "Hey, can you send us a movie? We're interested in screening it." So that helped a lot. And then we would just blindly submit to festivals. We do some research, see like, okay, this festival typically plays like this kind of stuff that we have a good fit. So we'd submit. It's like submitting a slush, for an anthology or something. Right. It's we basically sent out queries. And then they would you go through a judging process. Every festival is a little bit different, but then they would nominate the film, and then we wouldn't know if we won or not until we got there. And in some cases, like we won Best Picture and Best Special Effects at the New Jersey Horror Film Festival and Convention. We didn't even know we were nominated when we won. We went to the award ceremony just to support the other filmmakers, and we got there, and then they started playing. You know, they start throwing up the nominations, and I looked at them like, "What the hell?" Like I didn't even know we got nominated, and then we won. So that was really, really wonderful.
Are you working on any more feature length?
I have another feature that I've been writing for 10 years called Masterwork. And I think I'm finally at a place where I think I could pull it off. So that is, I want to do Dead Format, the short film first. And then after that, jump into the next feature, which is of course about a filmmaker trying to make his big dream project and how it destroys his life.
Autobiographical?
100%. Everything that I've ever written is autobiographical. Like the Please Don't Tap on the Glass, the book. I tell people, Brian Keene told me, "Do you bleed on the page? And that's how you write a good story." Well, that was me hitting an artery.
Yeah. Brian Keene's good. Like he said to me once, he said, "Write what you know." And I said to him, "Okay, how did you know about the Rising, zombie apocalypse?" And he told me the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "Oh, and then I just added zombies," and it was like,
that's absolutely the zombies are window dressing, and that's what makes the story so powerful.
Yeah. Now, what is the toughest part, from your opinion? Because I know that we got a lot of people out there who are thinking of going from traditional writing to screenwriting. What's the toughest part about going from one to the other?
It's hard because when I am writing a screenplay, I tend to like. It really depends. So I'm in a unique position because I'm directing the stuff that I'm writing. So when you write a screenplay, like a spec screenplay that someone else is going to direct, you don't want to get too into the nitty gritty of camera moves, visuals. You basically are giving them a bare bones blueprint. So then the director can take that and put his own, vision on it. So it's really hard to write like a stripped down version. Because when you're writing prose, you're in the head of the character completely. And you can go off for 3 pages about their whatever they're thinking or feeling, whatever, but you can't do that in a screenplay.
Right.
So that's a little difficult. I tend to write screenplays. I don't write in proper screenplay format, which is really bad. I should not be doing that. My screenplays look more like a stage script, but I do I almost write small amounts of prose along with like the action scenes because I'm writing it for myself because I'm fleshing out the story as I go. I know what I want when I'm with my actors. They get a better idea of what I'm looking for from that scene. So it's like a weird hybrid of prose and screenwriting, which I do not recommend. It's not a great thing. If you hand a producer a script like that, they're going to throw it in the trash. But I'm in a unique position, like I said, because I'm doing my own stuff. So that works for me. But I would also recommend reading screenplays. There's lots of websites that have famous movie screenplays. You can buy books that have screenplays in them. Just to get a feel for the way that they're written is really important, and the pacing and stuff like that. I'd highly recommend doing that. That would be a huge help.
Okay. Now, question I have: you took from the short story, in White Doomsday, you took, and I can't remember the character's name. It's just the actress, but you took Hope's torment about should she let her child continue, should she put him out of his misery. How do you take that from the written page where you, like you said, it can be 3 to 5 pages long, and get it into a movie? Because you did a fantastic job on that in White Doomsday.
Well, thank you. I have to give most of that credit to Hope because she really brought that to life. In less capable hands, that would have not worked at all. And that was the scariest thing for me. Again, I do mostly horror comedy, mostly because if you just lost my train of thought. When you make a horror movie, a bad horror movie is a comedy, but a bad comedy is just awful. It's unwatchable. So in order to write good comedy, you have to be really sharp. And that has aided me tremendously when I was writing dramatic stuff, because really there's not much difference between drama and comedy. I think Mel Brooks has a quote that I always think of. I love this. He said, "Comedy is when you fall. There's tragedy is when I fall down a manhole and break my leg. Comedy is when you fall down a manhole and die." And I absolutely love that description. So it's really, really hard to kind of nail down. Like when we were first shooting Doomsday, I did not know if I was going to be able to do this, but Hope brought so much to the character. And a lot of that was just being a director. I had to sit there and we talked about what the story was based on and my own personal experience with grief and loss. And she brought in her own thing that she really brought that out in the performance. Because when you're writing a screenplay, you can't go on for 6 paragraphs about somebody's grief or that they're sad. You just write the line. There's no intonation. That's really the director and the actress's point. That's their job to adapt that however they can. And the way that you write a line, when that comes out, when that big shot is set, they could be taken in a completely different way than you intended to completely change the tone of the scene. But that's the beauty and the horror of being a writer and a filmmaker. Is there's lots of really beautiful screenplays that got butchered in films, and vice versa. Like there's absolute shit screenplays that were rescued by a great director and actor. So I don't know if that really answered your question.
No, it does. Because, like I said, there's a lot of people out here who are like, okay, I've been writing. I'd like to try to get it into a screenplay, but I tried that once. And my problem was when it came to the action scenes, I wrote them like I would in the book. They were ridiculously long.
Yes, and the thing is, when you're writing so a lot of times when you're writing like a horror screenplay, there would be like a death scene. It could be literally a single sentence, and that will turn into a 3-minute sequence in a movie.
Yeah.
And that, so it's so wildly different. Like, I've read screenplays where it's like, and then he kills the zombie. It's like, okay, and then I'm a special effects artist, so I get that script. And they're like, yeah, we need you to like kill this guy. I'm like, so what do you want? To like, I don't know. And then you just gotta kind of make it up. And some of the most memorable scenes in movies were improv. That sort of thing goes. But yeah, you don't want to get too specific with things. You want to give it a little bit of freedom for the director and the writer. Or again, like you're doing it yourself, then you can indulge.
Jen, I've been doing all the talking. You got any questions?
I noticed that a lot of your stuff on IMDb was special effects, and
Yes.
I was curious. I guess what your special effects credit is. Just, I mean, in general, I like, what are some of the things? Because one of them was for special effects that I believe that you were nominated. Is that, or won?
Sorry, say again?
That you won with the special effects?
So we won Best Special Effects on White Doomsday, yes. So I do a lot. The IMDb page that I don't really update that, so that's missing quite a number of credits. But I've been doing effects since I was in high school, so I've done a lot of music videos and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I do lots of gore effects are my favorite thing to do. So in Doomsday, there wasn't a lot of gore, but I did a lot of corpses, and then the scenes with Santa. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's some big special effects scenes with that later on. So yeah, that's my bread and butter is flashing things with fake blood.
Anything else, Jen?
In 2020, you did the whole What Happens Next Will Scare You.
Yes, that was directed by Chris LaMartina, and a friend of mine, Jimmy George, was the producer of that. They did the WNUF Halloween special, which just got a sequel as well. They're super popular stuff. That I did for What Happens Next Will Scare You. I did a pimple monster. So I did a girl who was mutated and had these giant boils all over her face. And I got to do a rig where she shoots pus out of her face. There's a giant boil that squirts. So we got to do that.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what kind of special effects you worked on, because it looked like you had done that on several different.
Yeah, so I do like people getting their arms ripped out, nuts being pulled out, that kind of stuff. Like people getting skinned, like all that kind of stuff. That's my jam.
Okay.
Now, you've been the producer, you've been the screenwriter, and you've been the director. Which one do you prefer?
Directing, by far. I love directing. Being a producer is mostly just being the logistics and bankrolling the money. So I'm a control freak, so the two go hand in hand as a director and a producer. Technically, the producer is the person that keeps you in check as a director. Because I am my own producer a lot of the time, there's nobody to tell me no, which is not necessarily the best thing in the world sometimes. I like producing for other people. I'm not a huge fan of producing for myself, because being a director, you're trying to bring this vision to life. You're trying to plan out all the creative side of it. Being a producer is all the logistical side of it. So it's very difficult to do them both simultaneously. But I love producing for other people because I'm really good at logistics and I don't have to deal with any of the other shit. That's their game. I'm just telling them, you can't do this, or you can't do this, or I'm going to call this place and get this location, or we don't have enough money to do this, or here's how you're going to build this, and all that kind of stuff.
Now, you've screenwritten for other people, right?
Yes.
What is the biggest aggravation you have? You've written a great screenplay. You pass it over to the director and producer. What drives you nuts?
When they change everything that I wrote, which will absolutely 100% happen. So even when you're directing, if you're trying to make your own independent film, you cannot fall in love with any scene, because filmmaking is compromise. So the way that I tell people, you start off with this when you're writing something, you don't have to write to a budget. It's free to write something. So you've got this beautiful giant ocean of ideas and all this stuff, and it's perfect in your head. The second that you're like, okay, we're going to make this a film, then you get a budget set. That shrinks the ocean down to a lake. Then it's like, okay, now we need to find locations. Well, now you're in a pond. And then by the time you're done, it just keeps you, every decision you make just hones in this vision bit by bit, but the reality sets in, you have to compromise. So eventually you end up in a little puddle, which is barely deep enough to drown yourself in, which is what you want to do after you're done filming it. But it's really when someone else is taking your script too, their vision might be completely different than yours, and the way that you have this beautiful scene in your head, they completely change it, or because they don't have the money to have an underwater car chase, it's like, damn, I guess it's gonna have to be bicycles now, or you want this giant tentacle monster, and then you realize that it's going to have to be entirely off screen because you can't afford to build a 25-foot Cthulhu. And it's the worst part about writing a script for somebody else's reality, I guess.
Yeah, you don't want it to become like Sharkenstein or a Sci-Fi Channel movie.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're writing, like, I always write to a budget. I personally try to keep my stuff small scale because I know what I'm actually going to have access to. And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for people that are just trying to write like a spec script to try to shop around to somebody else. You can let them pare it down. But I write smaller scale stuff that I know we can pull off. But if you're trying to sell your script to a production company like Netflix, shoot for the moon, write it as big as you want. They can always change it. They will change it.
So if you want to write a screenplay for low budget, independently filmed, what's the best way to shop it around?
So what you can do, you can go a couple different ways. You can network at festivals and conventions. Like, the biggest thing is if you watch a lot of indie film and you find a movie that you really love that was a small budget movie, and it's like, hey, this director has a sensibility that I'm looking for, you can reach out to that person. I think people tend to forget that filmmakers are just people too. So, you shoot them an email and you're like, hey, I really liked your movie. I've got blah, blah, blah. At the very least, you just made their day, because when you're creating stuff, a lot of the time you're kind of in a vacuum. But going to conventions and film festivals is probably the best thing you can do. I highly recommend film festivals because you get to see a lot of different budget levels of films, and the filmmakers are usually there. You can ask questions. And then if it's, like I said, if it's someone you're vibing with, you can be like, hey, would you be interested in a script? And a lot of the time they're going to say no because they get shopped. A lot of people throw scripts at them. But if you've got, if you've got some work behind you, especially if you're a published author, you can send books out. You can get noticed that way. A lot of movies that got made just because, like, Don Coscarelli randomly picked up John Dies at the end. When he was reading, he read it on a plane. He's like, I've got to make this into a movie. And that blew up his career. It's just like little random coincidences like that. But you can also start submitting to screenplay competitions. A lot of film festivals will have, like, Genre Blast is one of the best. I'd highly recommend them. You can get feedback from the judges, and if you win some awards, it helps visibility on the script, and you can start shopping it around a little bit. And then when you submit a screenplay to a festival and it gets into the competition, then you attend that festival, and you're not just some random schmuck. You're like, hey, I've got a screenplay in the competition, so already you're a couple levels up where people are going to want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And some of those screenplay competitions, they'll do table reads with actors as the show as part of the event. And you can kind of see that. And I've noticed a lot of movies get made that way. People are like, hey, I really like your screenplay, that scene, let's talk. Or you can always just go and do it yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Jen, did anybody have any questions in the comments?
Well, I don't know how, but we ended up going down a road of 80-year-old biker boobs with Ash. So
I was going to say Ash started that one.
So sorry about that, Mike. But I of course encouraged it, so I kind of am guilty too.
The elderly are people too; they need love as well. So,
one of the things you said also was that your goal was to make artistic expression through necrophilia and chainsaws.
Yes, I wanted to prove that artistic expression can involve necrophilia and chainsaws.
Okay, so tell me how necrophilia comes into this at all, if at all.
So that was a screenplay that I was writing called Carnal House that is yet unproduced, but one day I will make that movie. But the point of that, what I was getting at with all of that is I love cheesy horror movies. I also love highbrow dramatic movies, and I love personal self-expression, and I think that there is room for both. I think the best movies and the best stories are ones that have a core of personal trauma or just something that's meaningful to you. Like I want real life. When I'm reading stuff, you can tell when something was autobiographical. And I feel like that has so much more staying power. But you can, like Brian Keene did, you can take a story about your child being taken away from you and losing touch with them, and then you can add the zombie apocalypse. And that creates the complete picture.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of the times the horror trappings are just the window dressing. And I think that a lot of people forget that when they're writing. So they're like, wouldn't it be crazy if sharks could fly? It's like, yeah, that's great, but that's not a story. Like, that's a premise. But what are the characters like? What's the heart of this? And I tend to come up with the heart of things first and then add the other elements later. So I like to combine. I think you could take B-movie sensibilities or horror and you can mix it with personal autobiographical stuff. I think you can come up with something really powerful that way.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what we were talking about. So there's
you can fund your film too, but I won't go down that road.
So how many do you have the goal of finding somebody else to do the producing? Because it sounds like you love the directing.
I do. So I've got a couple of filmmaker friends of mine that I really, really like, and they've been producing stuff, and they've reached out and they're like, hey, we really want to help you produce some stuff. So I'm going to be pairing up with them, hopefully for a dead format, which will take a lot of the weight off my shoulders and let me focus on the fun part. Hopefully.
Yeah, the part that you love.
Yeah.
And didn't Brian, wasn't he a producer on White Doomsday?
He was. So the biggest thing that Brian did for me, aside from throwing a few bucks our way, was he added legitimacy to the project. So he'll tell people that he basically just threw his name on it, which a lot of the time when you see like Quentin Tarantino presents Hostel, by a film by Eli Roth, that's really what it is was Quentin Tarantino saying like, hey, I like this kid, I'm going to help him out. So he used his name to help open some doors for him, and that's kind of what Brian did for us. He was there on set some of the time, and he offered some suggestions and all that. But as we all know, Brian's not much of a writer, so you know.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't really take his advice too. I was like, yeah, okay, kid, you know, let's.
I'm surprised you didn't make him a corpse or something.
He's cameoed in a bunch of my short films. I met Brian when I was 17 years old. I met him at a book signing, and we became very quick friends. So he's been in all sorts of stuff. He did voice cameos and things, and we shot a couple short films with him based on his stories. There's more in the future for me and Brian pairing up. There's definitely some more stuff coming up in the future.
Oh, good.
Neat.
Now I got a question. When you do the movie, you do a good movie, you fight to get it out there, then you sit down and you watch some of the crap that is independently produced. What goes through your head?
So I watch movies in a very different way than most people. So I watch things as a filmmaker. So when I see a low budget movie, I mean, I was a judge I ran 3 film festivals and I was a judge for a lot of them. So I've seen the gamut. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of independent film. Even the stuff that is the absolute worst, I can still see some technical merit or some heart or creativity and ingenuity in there. So I tend to watch more for the behind the scenes stuff. But the stuff that irks me is when I see something that I think is really sloppy or lazy being put out and it gets a lot of acclaim, or it really like it's got a lot of legs, which is on the one it's hard because on the one hand I'm cheering because an independent film got picked up and it got somewhere, but it more frustrates me that the audience wants. I'm not a big fan of like slasher stuff. So a lot of that's what's popular in the indie world right now is slasher films. And it frustrates me that that's all people want to see. And then a really, really brilliant indie film will come out and nobody gives a shit. And that bothers me a lot. But again, my tastes are strange compared to most people. But that's also one of the realities of being a filmmaker is you need to decide very quickly what you want out of this. Same with writing. Are you doing this to get famous? Are you doing this to get money? Are you doing this to fulfill your own creative passion? because if you are doing it to get rich or to get famous, you're probably not going to get there. Like the odds of it happening, you have a better shot of getting struck by lightning while winning the lottery than landing like a studio. And I'm not saying that's discouraging, but it's just a fact. You know, you do this because you love it. That's what makes a good film. You can't chase trends. Like you know, that movie that came out, Megan, right? The robot. There's going to be 10 low budget films this year at festivals that are about a killer like robot, and those movies are going to be forgotten in an instant. But someone comes up with something really unique or original, and that has staying power. And maybe it doesn't succeed right away, but maybe 10, 15 years from now, someone on a podcast is talking about this undiscovered gem, and then suddenly it gets this cult following, and that's a really beautiful thing to see happen.
Like Blair Witch.
Yes, I mean, well, Blair Witch was a pretty big deal right out the gate. But those guys, they were marketing geniuses.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a fluke right there. But you know, then 1,000 people made found footage movies, and they didn't get anywhere with it.
Right.
And that's just how it works.
Jen, any more questions?
So what is your project you're working on now?
Dead Format. So that is a short story that's in Please Don't Tap on the Glass. It's about a VHS collector who has just lost his father, and he finds out that the video store he used to go to as a kid is going out of business. So he goes there to buy out their stock, and he finds a tape he's never heard of before. So he brings it home and starts to watch it, and bad things happen.
That's kind of crazy, given the conversation we had right before this show started.
Yes,
and it's a very big about the author picture that I have in Please Don't Tap on the Glass is me on the set that I built for this, with me holding a VHS tape, because it is a super personal story, and I feel like I don't want to get too much into what the story is actually about because I don't want to ruin anything for anyone. But I feel it's very much about like loss and grief, but I feel like we talk a lot about like losing people, but I don't think that people realize how much places really affect your life. Like before the show, we were talking about the video store. I came of age in the video store, and so much of my personality and my worldview was shaped by the experiences I had at the video store and renting movies and just seeing all these movies I never would have heard of otherwise. And when those stores started going out of business, as a collector, I was super excited because I'm like, oh, I can buy all their VHS tapes. I never thought that I'd be living in a world where video stores don't exist anymore. And we lost that entire culture, and that's a really sad thing. And I still see the building that video store used to be in. It makes me legitimately like sad. I get depressed thinking about it, that it's gone. And it's almost like a ghost. And that's kind of the story is very much about that as well. And then people get disemboweled of the chainsaw at some point too. So there's good fun.
Yeah.
Jen, was there any questions from the comment section, or are they still talking about 80-year-old boobs?
You know what? I have been listening to you. I'm not paying attention as much as I should have.
Mike, the comment section on our shows is just
it goes off the rails.
That's all right. My brain is
Facebook lets us even go on anymore.
And I sometimes am the culprit as the reason it goes off the rails.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Go ahead, Jen.
Oh no, I actually was just gonna say, did you see something, Scott, that was brought up in the comments?
No, I didn't see anything. I've been chatting with Mike. Mike, do you have any more non-screenwriting projects? Are you writing any more short stories? Any more anthologies coming up?
Yes, so I am going to be doing a 3-story. I don't want to call it a chapbook. It's almost like a very short collection. That's going to be 3 stories that are going to be probably leaning towards extreme horror. I'm writing the first one right now. It's called Carnival Night, and it's extremely upsetting. I love pitching ideas to my girlfriend. She gets extremely pissed off at me because she gets very grossed out by the stuff that I'm pitching to her. So that's always a good sign. If she gets upset, then it's probably going to be good stuff. So I'm going to be writing that. Hopefully I'll have it out in time for AuthorCon next year. That book is going to be called Side Pieces. Okay. So that'll be good fun. So I want to do that. I just want to get back into writing. I have to be in a very specific mood to write prose versus screenplays. It's like 2 completely separate parts of my brain. But right now I'm very much on a prose kick. So
interesting. Okay. So what does she get upset about? tell me one time when she got upset on something you presented.
Lex, what was probably the worst thing that I pitched to you for Carnival Night? She says she doesn't want to talk about it.
Is she a fan?
Bad. Yikes.
She is a horror fan. She is. Okay. But
so
this story is
a horror fan. That's something.
Yeah, but this story is just particularly disgusting. Are you guys familiar with Edward Lee?
Oh yes, he's one of my favorites.
This story is very much Edward Lee. So it's it's so the opening of the story is a gentleman staring in the mirror, saying, looking at himself, and he said he definitely needed a shave. So then the next line is something to the effect of, he only winced twice as the carrot peeler ran the length of his penis to take the scabs off. So it's pretty nasty stuff.
Oh yeah, Ed Lee but he's fantastic. Like
I loved his all-time favorite writer.
I loved his Inferno series. What he did with Hell.
Yes,
I mean that was some of the most brilliant writing. Now, White Doomsday, the short story, is it in? Please Don't Tap on the Glass.
It is, absolutely.
Okay, I'm definitely going to pick that up after this. And what other film projects are you working on?
So aside from Dead Format, there's a couple things that I'm talking to other people about right now, just doing some effects work. I'm not sure if any of that's going to come to fruition. There is another short film that I was hoping to do called You'll Never Feel Safe Again that was based on a true event in my life where I was sent several death threats by someone who did not enjoy the real splatter films. So I have like a little 5-minute film about that. And then I actually started a documentary called The Brilliant Terror, which is about indie filmmaking. And they followed me for almost 10 years on set. And that was on the film festival circuit. It still is currently. But we were just in Italy with that film back in October, actually. So hopefully that'll get distribution soon so people that aren't at festivals can see it. But it's a very, very cool doc. Talking about they profile a bunch of indie filmmakers, but I'm one of the main subjects. And it kind of shows you just the crazy lengths that people do to get these projects made.
We did have a couple of questions.
Brilliant Terror, did you say?
What's that?
Is that The Brilliant Terror, did you say?
It's called The Brilliant Terror, a grassroots horror documentary.
Okay. Sorry, Scott, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
It's there's trailers online and stuff. That one, I think they won 4 or 5 awards already on that. They premiered at Fright Fest, the Arrows Videos Fright Fest in London, which is a huge deal festival. And my passport came 2 days late, so I was not able to go to the world premiere. But we got to go to Italy though, so that was cool. Yeah, that's been playing all over the place. So I'm very excited for people to see that.
Now, we did have one question. Somebody, Lee Edwards, asked, not Ed Lee, if you're from Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yes, born and raised in this concrete jungle, these mean streets. We, when I'm not making films, I'm dodging drive-by buggy shootings from the Amish Mafia.
Oh,
I was wondering. I did see the Amish Mafia is there. No, the Amish is.
That's, Lebanon Levi, he's got an iron grip on this town. I shouldn't even be saying that out loud,
No, I'm not even going to go into the Amish thing I heard today. I'm trying to see. Lee said he had some other stuff, but I can't see the other questions.
I did see someone in the beginning ask me what my favorite trauma movies were.
Oh,
sure that was. But I'm a huge trauma fan. My favorite trauma film ever is Cannibal the Musical, which was made by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who directed South Park. Absolutely adore that movie. That wasn't a trauma in-house film though, but Toxic Avenger was a huge influence on me. Lloyd Kaufman was one of my heroes as a kid. I learned a lot of stuff about filmmaking from him. Terror Firmer is one of my all-time favorites. Excuse me, from them. Tromeo and Juliet, Bloodsucking Freaks, Trauma's War, Surf Nazis Must Die. The whole I have them all. Just all great stuff.
Poultrygeist.
Oh, Poultrygeist, fantastic. I think that's the last good movie they made.
Lee also wanted to know, have you done the Cinema Wasteland in Strongsville, Ohio?
So I would kill to go to Cinema Wasteland. We've premiered 3 short films at Cinema Wasteland. I've just never been able to go. because they have a little festival. But I hear nothing but amazing things, and it's definitely something that I plan on attending before my time on this earth is at an end.
And Lee also asked, have you ever thought of working with Troma, since he's also from Pennsylvania?
So when I was younger, my dream was to work with Troma, but as I've gotten older, my personal philosophies on how to run a film set and filmmaking and stuff don't jive with how Troma treat people. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Troma. Like, I love their old stuff. I love that they gave a lot of people opportunities, but I don't necessarily agree with their current business practices and the stuff they're putting out. So I do not want to work for them anymore, but they still always have my heart because they were such a big influence on me. And I see someone said the Make Your Own Damn Movie series. Yes, those books are incredible. That's another great thing. If you're a filmmaker or a writer, there's a whole series of books that Lloyd Kaufman put out. Write your own damn movie, direct your own damn movie, produce your own damn movie, make your own damn movie are invaluable resources. They are so full of incredible information of all budget levels, and they interview people like Stuart Gordon and Sam Raimi. Like, there's tons of stuff from well-known directors in there as well. It's really, really good stuff. Highly recommend.
Okay. All right. We're going to close it up in a minute. Jen, do you have any other questions?
Nope. I think I've asked him all my questions. I'm very excited about the VHS, and I also think it's really cool, the Brilliant Terror. I think that's going to be neat to see.
Thank you. It's good stuff. I'm excited for people to finally see it.
Yeah.
Jen, where did you say you could find I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday?
I know it was on the Roku channel. I saw that, and I think you can also get it on Prime. You can rent it on there. Oh shoot, I should have wrote all those down. I did have it somewhere.
Just go to Amazon, buy it, and then go to a convention and have Mike sign it.
Yep.
Right.
Also, like I said before, ScreamTeamReleasing.com, you can buy it directly from the distributor. That's the best way to get it, because we actually get money from that. And you're supporting an independent distributor that's really good too.
So you don't get money if it's sold on Amazon?
You get very little money. Amazon takes a 55% cut. Not to get too much into business here, but Amazon takes a 55% cut of all of their sales, which is criminal, but everyone shops on Amazon. So if you have an independent filmmaker or writer in your life, try to buy direct whenever possible.
Okay.
I mean, in a lot, but leaving Amazon reviews is the other best thing you can possibly do for someone to support them, because Amazon rules the world, and the more reviews you have, the better the chance of the algorithm kicking their book or movie into a recommended section for people. So that drives sales too. So that's really helpful as well.
Okay. Oh, I did write it on. You can also see it on Plex TV. But
Plex, yes.
Yeah. But buy it. Just support Mike so we can get his next movie. Please Don't Tap on the Glass and Other Tales of Melancholy and Grotesque is available on Amazon.
Yes.
I'm going to be picking that up. I want to read the short story. And your webpage is Real Splatter, one word, RELL, realsplatter.com.
Yes, it's a reel with two E's, like a reel of film, because we shoot digitally, so it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Mike, thank you so much for joining the show tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. Watch it. It is dark. It is disturbing. It's really a good. It's got like The Road feel to it.
Yes, I pitch it to people as The Road meets Miracle on 34th Street. It's the best way that I can describe the movie.
Yeah, I don't know about the Miracle on 34th Street, Pop. Again,
it's been a
Mike,
pleasure, Mike. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
All right. To everyone else there, please, if you enjoy the show, hit like, subscribe. We're going to be doing this a lot. We're going to be getting a lot of other guests for the next few months. So keep supporting us. To everyone else who joined in, thank you. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Merry Doomsday, everyone.